right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeremy Miller, and I am the PACAC facilitator for today's panel on I'm First, Advice, Support, and Celebration for First-Generation College Students. We have a great panel of counselors and directors here, so please enjoy the panel, ask questions, and thank you so much for joining the virtual college exploration event here in Pennsylvania. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our presentation today entitled I'm First, Advice, Support, and Celebration for First-Generation College Students. You're going to hear from some great counselors throughout the Pennsylvania area, kind of provide you guys with some tips and some tricks for applying if you're a first-generation college student. Brandy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks, Tasha. My name is Brandy Gershon. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions at Chatham University. Welcome to the session.
My name is Rachel Banks. I'm the Assistant Director of Penn State Admissions Pittsburgh, and it's good to be here with you.
And hello, everybody. My name is Justin Money. I'm an Associate Director in the Office of Admission at Carnegie Mellon. Happy to be here, and I'll be talking to you a little bit more later on.
And my name is Tasha Peacock, Assistant Director at the University of Pittsburgh in the Office of Admissions and Financial Aid. I'm a proud first-generation student, and we're happy to provide you guys with some information today. So we wanted to provide you with a quick overview of what you're going to learn today. We're going to go over the different types of colleges and universities. So a 2-year versus a 4-year, a public versus a private institution. Also the application and admissions process. There's several different ways to apply to institutions. So what's the best way of applying for you? And then also how to search for those scholarships. There's lots of free money out there. Where do you start? So we're going to help you with that process. And lastly, we'll go over financial aid. When to apply to financial aid. What does that look like? What information do you need to submit? Also, please feel free to submit questions in the chat. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can throughout the presentation. We'll also try to save some time at the end of the presentation to answer your questions. Thank you again for joining us today. You're muted, Brandy.
We're going to kick off with finding the right fit in your college search process. So there's a few possible things to take into consideration when finding your fit. Finding that major is usually where students tend to start to identify schools that are going to be best for them. So tips for choosing possible majors. So here are a few questions that you should ask yourself when you are working to figure out where it is that you want to go, what it is that you want to do, and how you want to accomplish those goals. So things like, what are your favorite classes currently? Hobbies and extracurricular activities, defining what is important to you. What career? Do you already know what career you're interested in? Or are you interested in maybe being undeclared because you're not sure where you fit or what it is that you want to do? There are a lot of tools available and personality assessments, assessments on areas of interest that can help you determine where your fit lies, or maybe help you consider options as far as career paths that you didn't even know based off of your areas of interest. Asking yourself things like, what do I love doing? Where do I see myself for the rest of my life? What do I see myself doing for the rest of my life? It's really important to search yourself to determine what is going to be that best fit for you. If you're looking for a career path, you have to consider it's something that you're likely to do for the next 25 to 35 years. So you want to do something that you love. Going to college and getting that degree can help you along that path. So finding your right fit. Your college search process. So At this point, you may have heard a lot from your college counselors about what's next or what you should consider when you're looking for colleges. First thing we're going to talk about is institution type. So public schools, private schools. There's certainly a difference. You should make these determinations during your search process. It's an excellent question to ask if you get to a college or university and you're not sure of their status. There's vocational and specialized schools, so technical schools that can help you learn a trade, things like becoming an electrician or culinary arts as a vocation. There's also a difference between 2 years and 4-year institutions. 2-year institutions gaining an associate's degree, or a 4-year institution gaining that bachelor's degree before you finish. You have to look at the institution and the setting that it's in, because you're not going to spend all of your time in class. So you want to be comfortable in the area that you're in. To determine, are you interested in an urban setting versus a rural? You want to consider things like safety, what that looks like to you, and those important things that are takeaways that your school must have to make you comfortable and successful. Surrounding resources, so stores and restaurants, residential areas. Maybe you want to be in a setting that you're not near a residential area, that you want to be in that city setting where it's just stores and restaurants and lots of activities. Some students are very comfortable in that setting and others have the opposite perspective. You want to look at campus enrollment. If you currently go to a small school and you're thinking you want to expand and go to a large school, that's a decision that you would have to make. Those schools offer different resources and are in different environments. Geographic location, that's something that's really important. Distance from home. So do you want to stay close to home? Here in the city of Pittsburgh, we have several choices within a few miles of one another. Some of us on this call are very close to one another, but we have very different institutions. So you can go to a school, you can find schools that are relatively close to one another that have completely different environments. So you want to weigh those options. Distance from home. Do you want to live on campus or do you want to be a commuter student? Meaning you drive to campus every day and stay at home. In-state versus out-of-state. Those are important questions too. Those have tuition ramifications that I'm sure Justin will address a little bit later in the presentation, but understanding what it means to stay local, stay close, stay in state, or expand and go out of state because you're looking for a different experience. One of the top questions to ask when visiting a school is housing and housing options and availability. Some schools offer guaranteed housing for all 4 years of your college career. Others do not have that opportunity and will only guarantee housing for the first year or the first 2 years. Along the housing lines, it would be important to know, how long do you have to live on campus? Is living on campus a requirement? Can you be a commuter student? Those are all things that you need to consider as far as options when you are looking for your fit during your college search process. Just a few campus characteristics that may be important to you. It's important to do your research before visiting a college. The number one thing that I will say is if you want to get to know a place, physically going there and visiting is best. This year is a little bit different as far as a virtual setting, but most schools are going to give you a virtual tour option or give you that virtual opportunity to experience campus, talk to students, and kind of get the real feel for the campus. Additional questions that you might want to ask or things to consider is religious affiliations, historically Black colleges and universities, if that's something that's important to you. It's important to search those things out. Gender specific versus co-ed. There's still all-female institutions, all-female colleges. Same on the male side. So if gender specific is important to you, take a look at that. Student body diversity. Again, you have to find out what is important for you, what is going to make your college experience, and what is going to help you find your fit. So those are just a few characteristics to consider. Other things, extracurricular activities. We well know that you're not going to spend all of your time in the classroom. So these extracurricular opportunities are important. So determining if your school is a Division 1, 2, or 3 athletic school. Understanding the difference if you are being recruited as an athlete and what goes along with athletics at the institution that you're interested in. Creative in the performing arts. Extracurriculars are made to be fun. Just because you haven't done it before doesn't mean that you can't explore it in college. So open yourself up to new opportunities, take chances, think about the things that you want to do, not the things that you've done in the past. Clubs and student organizations, from social justice to environmental conservation, social networking, all opportunities. Every school is going to tell you about those opportunities on their specific campus. So finding those things that are important or interesting to you and becoming a part of them. You want to become a part of the community. You don't want to spend your 4 years at a place where you don't feel connected. There are a lot of opportunities for you. There are a lot of schools to explore. So all of these things you consider during finding your fit or where you can see yourself. If you can see yourself walking through that campus and living in that dorm and eating in that dining hall, you know you're on your way. So you want to find all of the things that make you smile and make you say, yes, I think this is a good fit. The last thing that I want to talk about is campus resources. So libraries, computer labs, food and social quads, all of those things that can contribute to a positive college experience. All of us here can agree that for students that we work with in the admissions process, our hope is that you find your fit, whether it's with our school or another school. We want to see you find your fit and be successful.
All right, so let's talk about the application process. And when we're talking about applying to schools, the most important question is what's the best way for you to apply? So by that, I mean, what works best for you and your family? At most universities, you're gonna have at least 2 options. The first is gonna be the Common App, which is great if you're applying to more than one school at a time. Some schools have the option to do the Coalition App as well, very similar to the Common App, just kind of a different slate of schools that might use it. And the third is the university-specific app. So for a lot of universities, if you're looking for an application fee waiver, the university-specific app might be the easiest way to get that, although they will definitely honor fee waivers that come with the Common or the Coalition app as well. It really just depends on what the best mode to apply is for you and your family. When you sit down to do the application, well, actually, before you sit down to do the application, there are some things you need before you get started. The first is to make sure that you have all of your personal information. So things like your name and address, phone number. The biggest thing here is your social security number. A lot of universities will ask for that in the admissions process just to make sure that your application is linked with your financial aid application when it comes in. So make sure that you have your social security number correct. I've been in instances where I've had students not know what their social security number is. And so they pick 9 numbers that they really like and string it together. That's fraud, so don't do that. It's really important to have the social security number that the government issued for you. And if you don't have it, that's okay. Just leave that spot blank or hold the application until you have the SSN and then come back and put that in before you submit. The second thing you'll need is your high school transcript. Some schools will still accept high school transcripts. Others are having you complete what's called a self-reported academic record. Either way, if the school requires a high school transcript, you're going to ask for that from your school counselor, and then they'll facilitate the process of sending that to the school. If you're doing self-reported academic record, you're going to need your transcript, and you're just going to sit down and you're going to tell us a little bit about your school. So what school do you go to? Where is it located? What's their grading system like? Or is it numbers? Is it letters? Is it a holistic system? How long have you been there? Have you attended more than one high school? And then from which high school are you graduating? After you fill in that kind of preliminary information, you are going to tell us about the courses, the credits, and the grades that you've earned in those courses. So you're going to report your grades from 9 through 11. And then for 12th grade, you're going to give us your schedule So you're going to go through the same thing, courses and credits, but just instead of putting in grades, you're going to tell us if that course is currently in progress. And so for the schools that are going to accept the high school transcript, you don't have to do the self-reported academic record portion. But for the schools that are accepting self-reported academic record, it's kind of like the Common App. You do it one time, and then you can send it to the different schools that you're applying to. Self-reported can be a little time-consuming. On average, at least for Penn State students, it takes about an hour to complete. So definitely if you have questions, because it is not the most intuitive software, feel free to reach out to the colleges that you're applying to, and then one of the admissions counselors like us will be happy to walk you through that process. Third, if you've taken dual enrollment credits, so these are credits that you've taken while you're in high school through a local college, you want to make sure that you have that college transcript handy so that you can report those courses. For a lot of institutions, though, you are applying as a first-year student for at least. So if you're a transfer student, we only consider transfer students to be students who have earned college credits after high school graduation. So if you're a dual enrollment student, you can either get that college transcript and have the college send it, but if you want to report it on your application, you'll need a copy of that transcript to do that. But then you're also gonna have to have that college send that transcript to us so that we can have those credits officially evaluated. And then we'll send you a credit evaluation so that you know what courses and how many credits you are going to receive credit for. And then the final thing you'll need, although probably not in this COVID era, would be test scores. So a lot of schools are going test optional or test blind. And so you won't need test scores. It's totally up to you if you choose to submit those. But if you do, make sure that you have those score reports ready to send. Some schools are also accepting self-reported test scores. So just verify that what is in your College Board account matches the numbers that you're putting into their application, either on the self-reported academic record or elsewhere. And then on the next slide, thank you. So when we talk about these, so that was a little bit about the preliminary, like what you need to get started. When you're thinking about the application process though, here's 6 questions that are really critical. So the first is, when is the deadline, right? You never want to miss a deadline because that's kind of the first step in letting that school know that you're interested. And so it's really important that you don't miss that. The second question is, what is their process for reporting grades? So are you asking your high school counselor to prepare 6 transcripts to send electronically? Or are you asking for 1 transcript that you are then going to take home and put into the self-reported academic record system? What are their test requirements? You know, do they require the SAT, the ACT? Are there any subject tests required for admission? Are essays required? And then if essays are required, is it kind of like a free-for-all, so whatever you feel like writing about goes? Or are there specific prompts that you might need to read ahead of time and reflect on so that you can prepare your response appropriately? Do you need letters of recommendation? And I think this one is really important because since, you know, we're in this COVID era, in this virtual kind of remote learning space, the demands on people's times are a lot different than they were previously. And so if you need letters of recommendation, you might want to allow a little bit of extra time for your school counselor or for your teachers, you know, for your boss at work, for your priest or pastor, your coach, or, you know, whatever, for them to write those letters, because people are juggling a lot of different demands that they probably weren't juggling in the same way before. And then finally, how much is the application fee? And when it comes to the application fee, in most cases, there is never a reason for you to pay a fee. Just about every school offers fee waivers in one way, shape, or form. And so never let that application fee be a hardship for you to apply. You know, email the admissions staff, go to your high school counselor, knock down doors. If you need help, let me know. I'm happy to help knock them down with you. But the goal is for you to get those application fees waived so that you can submit the applications that you want to the institutions that you want, so that at the end of the day, you have a bunch of decisions from which you can then make the best decision for you.
Thank you. So next we'll talk about the scholarship process. So for me, again, I'm first generation student and I'm one of 6 children. So I knew my parents financially couldn't pay for all of us to go to college. So I definitely know I needed to go out there and start to search for scholarships. So scholarships are financial rewards that can be used to pay for college and don't need to be paid back. So there are millions of scholarships that you guys are able to go out and apply for online. I know a lot of times when I'm talking to students, they're like, yeah, I want a scholarship, but I don't know where to start. I always recommend starting first with the studentaid.gov website. So if you're applying for financial aid, the information regarding scholarships is going to be on there as well. It talks about the different types of scholarships, the different aids, different information that you may have to submit for this specific scholarship. And it also talks about how to avoid scams, because there may be some scams on websites telling you have to pay a certain fee in order to get access to these scholarships. So again, I would definitely recommend starting at the studentaid.gov website just to kind of see what's out there, and again, the different types of scholarships. Also, you want to speak with your guidance counselors, speak with your teachers. They have a wealth of information. That's why they're there. They're there to assist you and help you throughout this college search process. There may be specific scholarships that your high school may offer. Ask your counselors about things like that. I went to a school located on the north side, and again, I'm in the Pittsburgh area, and the Pittsburgh Steelers offer scholarships just to students who went to school on the north side. So that's something I didn't know, and a guidance counselor brought that to me, and I was able to apply for that scholarship. So again, utilize the people that are around you as resources. Talk to some of your friends that are currently in college. Again, make sure that you are doing your due diligence when it comes to looking for those scholarships. And each year, more than 1.7 million private scholarships have been awarded to students. So that's lots of scholarships. And don't think, let me just apply for this one scholarship, I should be a shoo-in to get it. Remember, hundreds or thousands of students are applying for the same scholarship that you are. So I would definitely recommend at least applying to a good number of scholarships. One other thing I would like to recommend is create yourself an Excel spreadsheet. So again, there's lots of different scholarships that you can apply for, but you don't want to lose sight on deadlines or requirements for those scholarships. So by creating an Excel spreadsheet, you can list the type of scholarship, you can list the criteria. Do I need to submit a high school transcript? Do I need a letter of recommendation? What additional information is required? Also the amount of the scholarship, and then I would put the due date. You know, always give yourself some time. So if something's due on the 17th, say it's due on the 15th, just to give yourself a buffer. And then also put on that Excel spreadsheet if you have completed that scholarship. But again, that's a great way to stay organized by creating an Excel spreadsheet, and you know exactly what scholarship you're interested in, how much you can get for those scholarships, and what the requirements are for those specific scholarships. I also want to talk about the different types of scholarships. So there's so many different scholarships that you can apply for. There are some that are based off of your merit, so academics. So those scholarships, they may want your high school transcript. They want to know your test scores, your GPA. There's also scholarships based on social norms. So your ethnicity, your religion, if you're first generation student. There may be some company sponsored scholarships. So if your parents work for a specific employer, check with your parents to see, does their employer offer scholarships or tuition exchange programs? Also, there may be scholarships based off your skills. So if you are, you know how to draw, paint, you're a dancer, there's athletic scholarships, especially at D1 institutions. So make sure you're looking out for that information as well. And then there's some scholarships that are just based off of your financial need. So for those specific scholarships, you may have to fill out a FAFSA form and submit that information in order to be reviewed for that scholarship. And then lastly, again, based off your activities, so community service, leadership. What are you doing in high school? What are you doing in your community? How do you showcase those leadership qualities? Again, those are different scholarships that you can apply for. So again, there's not one set of scholarships, there's several sets of scholarships that you may be applied for various scholarships based off of again, what you're already doing academically, or what you're doing socially, or how you're involved in your community and your school. So I will say for merit-based scholarships through universities, they are very competitive because again, you are competing with thousands of other students that have been admitted to that same institution, and everyone's applying for those same scholarships. So for those specific scholarships, you definitely want to apply early. Find out what the deadline is. It's going to be different for each school. You may need to submit additional information for that scholarship, or you may be automatically reviewed based off of the information you submitted for the admissions committee. So you definitely want to figure out what the process is for those internal scholarships at your institution. Also, again, external scholarship. You heard me talk a lot about the different types of external scholarships. Again, check with your employer. If you work for Chipotle or if you work for Chick-fil-A, they offer tuition to students. There's tuition exchange programs for certain employers. Also, if you're involved in community-based organizations, that CBO may be able to offer you a book award or a scholarship. So again, make sure you're utilizing the resources that are around you. And again, some institutions will solely base their funding on your financial aid regarding the scholarship. So check to see how you are reviewed for scholarships. I know at the University of Pittsburgh, if students apply for FAFSA and they're eligible for Pell, you have a Pell Match program. So if the government is saying that you're eligible for $4,000, Pitt will also match you another $4,000, so that's $8,000 in total. And again, other institutions have their own processes on how they award aid. And also something to think about too when you're writing and completing these scholarships, again, make sure you're submitting the information that is required. So if they want your high school transcript, make sure you submit that. Some scholarships may want to know your class rank, and also letters of recommendation. So again, give that person at least a 2 or 3 week notice if you can to write those letters of recommendation, because that is definitely heavily viewed in the process sometimes when it comes to scholarships. And then for those full tuition scholarships, usually students are invited to interview for those. So for that one, you definitely want to showcase your personality, show why you're an attribute to the institution and what you will bring to the institution if you were awarded that scholarship. So again, hopefully these tips were helpful on applying for scholarships. Next, we'll talk a little bit about the financial aid process.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And continuing in the theme of financial aid, I want to focus on defining some very common terms that you're going to hear throughout the financial aid process. I know I myself was a first generation college student, and for my parents and I, as we navigated the process when I was a high school senior, there was just a lot of lingo to learn. And I want to begin with just some terms to know here. First is the idea of cost of attendance. So I think the phrase and the word that I hear very often is questions about tuition and what is your tuition. Really, cost of attendance is the term that I would recommend that you use. And the reason for this is cost of attendance is a more encompassing idea that, in addition to including the tuition, is going to include other fees like orientation or transportation fees, as well as living expenses in the form of housing or dining costs that may be incurred. So it's better in encompassing all of the charges that may come from a college or a university. And it's also a very important figure in calculating a student's need-based financial aid eligibility. At colleges and universities, your eligibility for need-based aid could go up to your cost of attendance and include some of these expenses like housing and dining that are above and beyond just tuition. Another phrase that you'll hear very often is the expected family contribution, or the EFC for short. And it's an expected family contribution is essentially the amount of money that is being calculated that you or your family could contribute towards your education over a 9-month period, from income, from drawing down on liquid assets like a savings account, or borrowing, taking out a loan from a private vendor. These are calculated in a variety of different ways. Many institutions have their own formulas called methodology, and the federal government has one as well that is set by Congress. All of these different formulas to arrive at an expected family contribution look at a variety of different things. First and foremost, they're looking at your family's income and your assets and determining financial health. But they also are recognizing that paying for your college education isn't the only expense that a family has. You have other expenses like a mortgage or a rent. You're going to be putting food on the table, other day-to-day living expenses. You may have other siblings that are currently in college, or younger siblings that your family's saving for. So these different calculations build in protections for all of those things that account for the cost of living in the area of the country that you reside in, that account for educational costs or savings for younger siblings, that distribute your family's expected contribution across you and any other siblings currently in college, that recognize your parents or guardians are saving for their retirement, and dozens of other types of protections and allowances that are accounting for those other sorts of expenses. The financial need is the difference between these other two terms that I've defined. So if you take that total cost of attendance at a college and you subtract your family's expected family contribution, you're going to arrive at a financial need. And then this is the figure that colleges and universities use in the awarding of need-based financial aid. Some colleges guarantee to meet your financial need, others may not. That's a question to ask and explore, and I'll tell you about some tools that you can use for that exploration in a few moments. The applications that you would actually file to arrive at this financial need oftentimes include the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. It's available online at fafsa.gov. And I want to encourage you, write down that website, bookmark it. If you go anywhere else and you see somewhere charging you a fee to file a FAFSA, you want to move away from that site. There are sites that will charge fees to assist with that filing, but it's a free filing made available by the government that you should never have to pay a fee for. The other is the CSS profile is a fairly common application request. It's through the College Board, and especially a lot of private colleges and universities request it. Now, there is a fee to file the CSS profile, but much like Rachel was talking about requesting fee waivers for the submitting of common application, coalition application submissions, there are fee waivers available for the CSS profile as well. So if you are applying to a school asking for it, I wouldn't hesitate to reach out and inquire about a submission fee waiver for that school. Next slide. Thank you. So now I want to just talk a little bit about evaluating the actual cost. So that cost of attendance, that overall cost is what you see here is the sticker price. That's including the tuition, the fees, the room and board, the whole 9 yards that we talked about. And then if you look at your financial need and the financial aid that you might receive in the form of grants or scholarships, and including some of those merit scholarships, athletic scholarships, or private scholarships that we talked about earlier, maybe some federal assistance that you might receive in the form of federal loan programs, this is going to reduce your out-of-pocket expenses, the actual amount of money that you and your family are going to be asked to come up with and pay directly to the college or university. Your net price is going to include those out-of-pocket expenses as well as the loans, because ultimately those loans do have to be paid back to the lender, usually the federal government in the case of the loans that are included in a financial aid award. If you want to get an estimate or an idea of your net price, there's some tools available to help you do that. And I'll highlight that for you on the next slide here. So any college or university that awards any sort of federal financial aid is going to have something on their website called a net price calculator. The net price calculator is a little bit different from college to college and is going to ask you to put in some basic financial information. that you and your family would likely have from your tax documents from the previous year. These tools are anonymous and give you an opportunity to get an estimate of this net price of what grants and scholarships would you be eligible for at that institution, so that you're not just comparing sticker price to sticker price. And I think that's a really important thing to do, is you're getting down to formulating your list. There are a lot of studies out there that show that students will write off colleges because of those sticker prices. But in reality, because of the availability of grants and scholarships, if you have financial need, you really want to dig in and look at that net price in your final decision-making process. If you have really unique or specific financial circumstances in your family, it's always recommended to have a conversation with a financial aid officer at the college or university that you're applying to as well. So don't hesitate to reach out to a member of their teams, like the folks that are on this call. We can either advise you or connect you with a colleague at our institution who can provide you with some more specific advice on your circumstances. Okay, so that's all the information then that we have on financial aid. So I do want to encourage our attendees, if you have any questions, please do look for the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and you can submit those questions into us. I know we also have a couple of questions that we can address to get the conversation rolling here. So if you don't mind, maybe I'll just throw one out to our panelists and our team here to get the conversation started. And that is, if you had, a moment to give one piece of advice to a first generation student about the application or transitioning to their freshman year, what advice would you share?
Sure. I think the advice that I would share is take it one step at a time. It can be an incredibly overwhelming process if you try and process everything at one time. There are people, like everyone on this panel, that really are interested in helping with every step. So reach out for help and take it one step at a time.
I totally agree with what Brandy said. I was going to say connect to whoever your counselor is for your region, because your counselor can advocate on your behalf. If you're a borderline student, they can advocate for you. If there's a scholarship opportunity that comes up and you built that relationship and that rapport, you may be one of the first people they think about to be reviewed for that specific scholarship. But definitely spend time building that relationship, especially in this virtual world. There's tons of ways that you can connect with your counselors now. Lots of institutions are having, virtual programming, one-on-one appointments for students to connect. So definitely utilize those tools that are available to you. And again, start the process early. Start applying early. We kind of recommend students don't apply, January or February. Like, start the process now. Start to gather the required documentation that is needed. Again, if you want a teacher to write a letter of recommendation, that may take the teacher some time to write that, because he or she may be writing it for 100 other kids. So definitely definitely make sure that you are giving yourself enough time to do everything, stay organized, and make sure you're submitting the requirements of the application, because again, it may be a little bit different for each school. So again, take that time, apply early, and reach out to your counselor in your region.
I would say, as a first generation student, I think the thing I wish somebody would have told me is you don't know what you don't know. So don't be afraid to ask questions. If somebody says a term that you don't understand, ask them, hey, what does that mean? Because there's a lot of terms and acronyms that are unique to higher ed or to this particular institution. And we often throw those out kind of willy-nilly because we're so used to speaking that language. But if you don't know something, definitely ask, because that's how you learn. And it's always what you don't know that will in fact come back to bite you. So make sure that that you're aware of what's going on.
I think that idea of you don't know what you don't know is really important to keep in mind in the transition. So something I'd recommend is take a look at the college or university that you're applying to or enrolling at, and see if they have a first generation affinity group or community as a part of their campus. And if they do, seek that community out, because that's going to be a group on the campus that's going to be able to help pull that curtain back and let you know what those questions are that you should be asking. I know at Carnegie Mellon, we have a group called First Together that I volunteer with. And I wish this group had existed when I was a freshman at Carnegie Mellon, a decade and a half ago, because I was probably a sophomore before I really started realizing where the gaps in my knowledge were. But to have an organization like this where first generation faculty and staff will sit down over a dinner with a group of students and talk about, well, here are the things I learned, which I knew when I was a year like you. That community can help to gaps back that curtain in meaningful ways.
I have a question for the group. Since we're in this pandemic, a lot of institutions have gone towards a test optional process. Some questions I get from students is it a disadvantage to apply as a test optional student? Anyone want to answer that?
So I'll jump in first and say that each college and university, of course, is unique in their policies. You're going to find institutions that are test blind, where they're not even looking at exams, institutions that are test optional to really the question at hand, and then others where maybe the phrase they're using is test flexible, where they're looking for really specific circumstances where they're allowing students to not submit scores. But something that I would point to is there's an organization called the National Association for College Admission Counseling. It's the nationwide corollary to the state group that's putting this event on. And they've prepared a statement that over 300 test optional colleges and universities have signed on to, committing that the phrase optional means optional. So this is somewhere that you can look to see, is the college or university I'm applying to signed on and a part of this collective statement, reaffirming that there's not a disadvantage to being a test optional applicant this year.
I think speaking from Chatham University and the small private liberal arts school that we are, test optional is truly test optional for us. We at Chatham want to get to know our potential students. So this gives you the opportunity to define yourself and put yourself in the best light. We are about access and equity, and not everyone has had the opportunity. This year is such a unique year that not everyone has had the opportunity to take those tests. So in our situation, we would never hold that against someone. So truly test optional is test optional, and we wouldn't look at that student any different.
I know at the University of Pittsburgh, so this year we are test optional, but students can also submit test scores. If you apply as a test optional student, there's no disadvantage for any of our programs, meaning the Honors College will also review you for scholarships as well. And then we have 18 freshman guarantees to graduate programs that, again, test optional students can be reviewed for those as well. So we do understand the circumstances and things that have gone on, and we don't want to hold that against any student. So again, if students need to apply test optional, you can definitely apply test optional. We just highly recommend that you submit some supplemental information. So a letters of recommendation, complete our short answer, essay responses, and also our personal statement. So it looks like we only have a minute left. Do we want to do any closing remarks? Because I don't see any questions in the chat. What piece of information do we want to leave our audience with today?
I think that quickly ending, I would say, find your fit, do what's best for you, take it one step at a time, and everyone's here to help. So your success is our success.
Ask questions. whenever you're unsure, just find somebody to ask.
I would also say don't hesitate to reach out. You know, if there's anything that any of us can do for you, or our colleagues at other institutions, if there's anything they can do, we're more than happy to do it. So let us know how we can be of help.
And always remember, you bring something unique and special. So always advocate for yourself, ask questions, and we hope this will help you during your college selection process. Thank you so much for joining us today.
All right, guys, thank you so much for presenting today on this wonderful topic and the great information you were able to provide our students. Students and attendees, when this webinar does close, you'll see a quick survey pop up. And again, we encourage you to sign up for additional sessions at pacac.org/virtual. And the recordings from this session and all past sessions and future sessions will be available after they have been completed. Thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you in another session soon.